This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. Like J-Lo, I too will find a way to work Let's Get Loud into this show. Here's what we got for y'all. The 46th President of the United States sworn in today, and boy was it surreal. We're hitting the highlights and giving an on-the-ground look at this historic ceremony. Plus, a full cleanse of the White House while following COVID protocols, of course. How this sets the tone for the new administration's priorities. But first, here's what you need to know right now.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. do solemnly swear.
We got ourselves a new president, y'all. Today, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. became president, entering office with the most votes of any candidate and as the oldest commander-in-chief to take the oath. In his first speech to the country, he focused on unity.
Let's begin to listen to one another again. Hear one another. See one another. Show respect to one another. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war.
Also making history today, Kamala Harris became the first woman and the first Black woman and the first South Asian woman to be sworn in as vice president.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
You might have recognized one of the men chosen to be a part of Harris's official escort. Eugene Goodman is the Capitol officer who quickly went viral for stopping rioters from entering Capitol chambers 2 weeks ago. Biden made mention of the attacks in his speech and focused on moving forward from the current political state of the country.
America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
Breaking with more than a century of history, former President Donald Trump chose not to attend his successor's inauguration today. He took his final flight on Air Force One to Florida and addressed supporters there. Trump will now reside at his Mar-a-Lago resort in West Palm Beach. Before he officially left office, Trump issued at least 73 pardons and commuted the sentences of at least 70 others. The list includes celebrities like Lil Wayne, outright corrupt politicians like Kwame Kilpatrick, and too many other folks to mention here. One of the most controversial pardons, though, was for Trump's former chief strategist, Steve Bannon. He's accused of defrauding millions of dollars in a fundraising campaign for the border wall. It's only been a few hours since the inauguration wrapped up, and President Joe Biden has already issued more than a dozen executive actions. From climate change to public health and immigration, many of Biden's first priorities were to directly undo what former President Donald Trump has done. One of the first moves, which set the tone for Biden's administration, was to issue a national mandate requiring masks. Biden also put a stop to the U.S. withdrawal from the World Health Organization. He picked Dr. Anthony Fauci to deliver remarks to the WHO's annual meeting this week. As promised, Biden rejoined the Paris Climate Accord. Last year, the U.S. became the only country to pull out of the pact to fight climate change. With a few more signatures, he also stopped construction on the border wall and reversed a travel ban targeting largely Muslim countries. It's not every day you get to watch a presidential inauguration during the middle of a pandemic coming just 2 weeks after an insurrection at the Capitol. But I had the unique experience to take it all in today between doing a bit of the live TV thing and getting out on the ground. And trust me when I say it was unlike any other presidential inauguration. Here's a look.
You look great now. I wish I would have worn blue.
Chance, like I said, I'm just trying to match your energy, man.
We are 3.5 hours out from the actual inauguration.
Well, this is interesting. It's the best view in the house, right? We're up on the terrace of a building, and we're able to watch it all happen. It's just, there's nobody here. There are no people. This was a presidential inauguration unlike any other. On the ground, the word that came to mind was surreal. Just 2 weeks after violence at the Capitol, concerns over security and the ongoing pandemic had the National Mall locked down like a war zone. But still, the transfer of power was made.
I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans.
On TV, the inaugural show did go on, and TV people like me did our thing to try and make sense of it all. But being down on the ground near the Capitol, it felt like a whole other reality.
So we're about 2 blocks away from the Capitol, as you can see, and this is about as close as, excuse me, All right, so now we're 5 blocks away from the Capitol, and this is as close as you're gonna get. Now, behind me, you can see that there is a fence, a very tall fence with barbed wire at the top, and that stretches around the National Mall. It's one of the many security measures to keep folks safe during this inauguration.
Still, it hasn't been entirely quiet here. Signs of protest around the margins of the security perimeter were small in scale, a big contrast from the scene around the Capitol 2 weeks ago.
Of course, one of the biggest differences here on the ground is the lack of people. We saw in the National Mall that in place of people actually being there for the inauguration, they have flags there to represent all the folks that can't be here. A lot of the inauguration festivities have gone virtual, and it's just another sign that this inauguration was made for people viewing at home in this pandemic era.
Today was an unusual inauguration, to say the least. When you're back, we'll tell you about abnormalities at previous inaugurations. So today we saw a presidential inauguration with a very different look and feel than what we're used to. But looking at history can give us a bit of perspective and show us that the transfer of power doesn't always go according to plan. Inaugural events have often been modified both for the tastes of each president and the needs of the time. In response to the pandemic and recent violence at the Capitol, Joe Biden's inauguration had fewer official attendees, no public crowds on the National Mall, and tens of thousands of National Guard members to keep the peace. But one big divergence from tradition had nothing to do with the pandemic. Former President Donald Trump was not there. The 45th president and his family left Washington from the White House on the morning of the inauguration. And while we've come to expect that the outgoing president will be on stage to witness the transfer of power from one administration to another, there's technically no requirement that they attend. Besides Trump, 3 other presidents refused to watch their successors take the oath of office. The first to do so was the nation's second president, John Adams, who left in the middle of the night before his sworn political enemy, Thomas Jefferson, took office. Normally, inaugurations are paired with celebrations, including parades and parties. But amid national crises, presidents have opted to have events reflect the gravity of the times, and inaugural balls are often the first things to go. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was sworn in 4 times, and his presidency spanned much of the Great Depression and World War II.
Our strong purpose is to protect and to perpetuate the integrity of democracy.
Inaugural balls and parties were canceled for 3 of his inaugurations. FDR also canceled the inaugural parade in 1945 due to gas rationing and a lumber shortage during World War II. For reference, Biden enters the Oval Office as the COVID death toll nears that of all Americans who died during the Second World War. So in 2021, Biden's inaugural committee canceled the parade and hosted most inaugural events as virtual ones. The inaugural ceremony is guided by traditions set decades, if not hundreds of years ago, like hosting the event at the US Capitol or swearing upon a Bible. But those are just traditions. The only requirement for inaugural ceremonies is that the president takes their oath of office, 35 words written into the US Constitution that must be said exactly as written.
I, Richard M. Nixon.
I, Jimmy Carter.
I, Ronald Reagan.
I, George Herbert Walker Bush.
I, William Jefferson Clinton.
I, George Walker Bush.
I, Barack Hussein Obama.
I, Donald John Trump.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
But during Barack Obama's first inauguration in 2009, Chief Justice John Roberts fumbled the oath.
That I will execute the office of President to the United States faithfully.
That I will execute
the office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States faithfully.
Now, other presidents have had similar fumbles in the past, but in Obama's case, he repeated the oath the next day at the White House to end debate over whether he was actually sworn in as president. No need for do-overs this time.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr.
Thank
President.
you.
You ever just get into a cleaning mood? I did, and we filmed it. In this next package, we wanted to take a look at the business of the White House as the Biden administration strives to be clean and COVID-free. Right now, the White House is likely getting scrubbed down to make sure the new administration is working in a clean and safe environment. I don't think I've been voted out of my post, but I figure cleansing my workspace couldn't hurt. At the White House, the General Services Administration was tasked with getting things spick and span between Trump's departure and Biden's arrival. And the reason is pretty obvious. We're still in a pandemic, and for the last 10 months, the previous administration hasn't always acted like it. On several occasions, President Trump and people within the administration dismissed health guidance by not wearing masks, not social distancing, and even holding events indoors. While workplaces around the country adopted best practices to keep people safe, the office of America's highest office became a COVID hotspot. So what will the business of the White House look like under the Biden administration? We asked one of the people leading the Biden-Harris transition.
I think we're going to see a whole new White House. The administration that's leaving has basically spent 4 years making up their own rules. And the rules when it comes to COVID haven't matched up with the public health guidelines.
And ultimately, that affected how the White House was able to operate. After the outbreak following then Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett's ceremony, events were canceled and White House advisors and aides had to work remotely.
A lot of us have been teleworking over the last few days, including my staff, out of an abundance of precaution.
I think you will see both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, after they've received both doses of their vaccines, continue to wear masks, because that is what the public health guideline is. It doesn't matter if you have the vaccine. Maybe you don't get sick, but you could still transmit it to other people. So I think they will model that behavior as they did during their presidential campaign.
The Biden-Harris White House is beginning their term during a pandemic that's killing 4,000 people a day and dragging down the U.S. economy. So the transition team's timing is essential.
There's no time to get up to speed. You need to know very clearly what you want to do. And it's importantly, you want to put very experienced people in place, people that don't have a learning curve, who can start to tackle these challenges.
Today, it's my great honor, and it really is an honor, to add to my national security team.
Also on the docket for Biden, tackling some of the more traditional aspects of the role while keeping a COVID-free White House.
You might even see cabinet members being sworn in virtually. You might see bill signings that are done virtually. Press conference could be done virtually.
Hi, everyone.
In this pandemic era, to the extent there's been any upsides, I think we've realized that, you know what, we all don't physically need to be everywhere.
The vision Lou laid out is very different from previous administrations, where presidents were a bit more accessible to select audiences. But it won't always be this way, especially for a president like Biden, who is so used to in-person contact.
He's going to want to meet with his advisors in the Oval Office and hash out ideas. He's going to want to hit the campaign trail and start shaking hands. All of those things will happen in time when public health officials say we're ready for that. It's amazing over the last 10 months how much we have adapted, and the White House will adapt too. Things will change, but they're not going to change forever.
Next up, we're getting musical. If somebody told me a year ago that Lady Gaga, Jennifer Lopez, and Garth Brooks would be performing at an inauguration, I would have tackled them because what? That kind of star power range doesn't make any sense. But sure enough, it happened, and their appearances weren't random. We're shifting away from traditional politics for a moment while Newsy's Cody LeGros breaks down the significance of song during presidential inaugurations.
Music sets the tone of every party, and the inauguration is no different. Who sings and what song is just as symbolic as the inaugural address itself. So to wrap our inaugural coverage, we're gonna hit you with the soothing sounds and peaceful transfers of power. And putting his paw up is President Joseph R. Biden. The newly elected head of state calling on Lady Gaga to sing the national anthem at his inauguration. And Mother Monster has not steered away from politics. Gaga's message has always been about inclusion, as she's been an advocate for women's rights, the LGBTQ+ community, mental health, and anyone with a disco stick.
And crown thy good with brotherhood. From sea to shining sea.
Another headliner for Biden-Harris, Miss Jennifer Lopez. J-Lo, whose Super Bowl halftime performance raised awareness about the Trump administration's immigration policies, is right in line with the turning of a presidential page.
Una nación bajo Dios indivisible con libertad y justicia para todos.
Compare that lineup to President Trump's list of performers, or lack thereof. 45th President of the United States picked Jackie Evancho to sing his national anthem. And if you're wondering who that is, she's that girl from that show. And if you still don't know, you're not alone. Trump's election was controversial from the start, reportedly making it harder to book A-list talent. Nevertheless, Trump made his mark with his music choice. At his inaugural ball, the Trumps swayed to Frank Sinatra's My Way. It's all part of a rich tradition of choosing inauguration performers that make a point. Bill Clinton booked outspoken advocate Michael Jackson to sing Gone Too Soon in '93 in the middle of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Ricky Martin sang at George Bush's inauguration in 2001, performing The Cup of Life, a Spanglish version of his song La Copa de la Vida, amid the Latin explosion in American culture. But with divas come drama, just ask the Obamas. He got two queens to sing the national anthem at each inauguration. In 2009, Beyonce sang Etta James' At Last for Barack and Michelle's first dance. And sure, the lyrics could be a nod to a nation electing their first black president, but Etta James saw it a little differently. She told a Seattle concert crowd shortly after, "I tell you, that woman he has singing for him, singing my song, she gonna get her whipped. I can't stand Beyonce. She had no business up there singing my song that I've been singing forever." Etta James later saying, "It was a joke." Hilarious. And a real way back Wednesday that would definitely not go on the gram. According to the BBC, George Washington's wife couldn't make his inauguration, and he towed the flow up with various guests who were not her. We love a shady swing dance, especially if it proves America been messy via its music in its quest for equality and justice for all.
If you haven't done so already, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag #NewsyInTheLoop. You have until 12 a.m. Thursday to give me your best inauguration fashion takes. With DC essentially shut down to the public and Airbnb canceling bookings ahead of today's ceremony, not many people could attend, but the pandemic prepared us well for virtual celebrations. Newsy's Casey Mendoza shows us the unique watch parties for this presidential inauguration.
The inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden kicked off this Saturday with a string of official virtual events, live-streamed concerts, a digital field trip for students, and even a virtual day of service for Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
And all day, people did their part.
Virtually and in person.
It's a historic moment, happening during unprecedented times, and in lieu of the events or watch parties that would typically happen in physical spaces around the country, folks are gathering virtually.
I do think it's important for us to be together in these moments. We are lucky that we live in a time where you can share moments with people even if you're not physically together.
Manny Yakutiel is the owner of Manny's, a San Francisco restaurant, bookshop, and venue that hosts political speakers and civic organizing events for liberal causes. Over the past 2 years, Manny's has planned over 1,000 events, and during the pandemic, it's pivoted to virtual talks, outdoor activities, or drive-in watch parties for events like the Biden-Trump debates. Manny's is one of several organizations hosting a virtual watch party for the inauguration, providing political experts and live conversation for viewers on Zoom. It's an event Yakutiel considers bittersweet for Democrats.
The bitterness of it is, of course, the insurrection on the Capitol, the fact that the inauguration is, under military watch, and the fact that most of us aren't going to be able to go there to see it ourselves. What I'm trying to get out of my watch party is a sense of community and togetherness to try to make the bitterness a little bit sweeter.
Other unofficial virtual events happening during Inauguration Week include virtual yoga sessions, book readings for kids, and live-streamed lectures on politics, race, and culture. That last event was organized by Washington, D.C.'s Busboys and Poets, a restaurant, bookstore, and venue that annually hosts an inaugural peace ball. These pivots to virtual spaces have been common throughout the pandemic, but once it's safe, Yakutiel says he's excited to once again organize political events in person.
My mission is to make politics physical, right? Like I brought Cory Booker to my space so that people could see him, hear his voice. And so I believe there will be a renaissance after this pandemic is over in the not too distant future, and I cannot wait for it.
Casey Mendoza, Newsy, Chicago.
That's it for us, folks. As always, thanks for watching. We'll be back for more in the Loop tomorrow. Same time, same place. Top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.